Have you ever wondered why the prices of things keep increasing? And why it always looks like you have to pay more for the goods and services you need? Now, to be honest, there are many factors that play into this role. However, there's one key factor that we'll be discussing in this video, and that's the rise of redundant jobs. So let's think about it this way. In most companies, it is the final customer that pays everybody's salary, not your boss, but the final consumer. Your boss just decides how many employees he needs to produce this good and service that the final customer is going to pay for. So if the boss decides to hire more people, it's likely the customer will have to pay higher for that product or service. This is why it is very important to have a very efficient number of staffs within a company. That way, it will always reduce the total cost that the final customer has to pay for that product or service. Which leads us to the next question. So, what do you do for a living? I'm not talking about your daily task or the made up job title you are given at work. I'm talking about your valuable contribution to society. Like, what do you actually do? Do you actually create anything new? Do you improve on any existing technology? So, some of you watching this now, this question can be very easy for you guys to answer. But some of you who don't do a lot of manual labor, you see yourself as a manager or a supervisor, some insurance or some banking company. It might be slightly difficult for people in these roles to describe exactly what they contribute in society. And if you are really finding it hard to state what exactly you do and how productive your labor is, you are actually one of the primary reasons why prices of things are going high. Because it is very likely that you're actually a redundant employee. So don't feel ashamed. The best I can ask you to do is to resign. But of course, I doubt you're going to do that. But at the same time, you have no right to complain about the rising cost of prices because you are a large factor. So now let's go back and learn the history. In the last 100 years, service jobs have gone from representing less than a quarter of all jobs and now representing nearly 80% of all workers in the workforce. Now, when we think of service jobs, most people typically think of people that we can send off errands, people that work in restaurants, or people that work in hotels that help us carry our bags around, or just people that help us open the door when we're passing through a pharmacy, a restaurant, a hotel, the doorman. Typically, their service might seem like an unnecessary luxury for the customers that are typically patronizing these restaurants and these places. But the service sector is not only limited to these types of people. The service sector is quite broad and it includes people that work as call sales personnel and even the CEO of companies. And one of the primary reasons a large percentage of people are working in the service sector is because it does not require specific certifications, and the service sector industry has grown tremendously all these years. However, a lot of jobs that has come along with it are very, very redundant, and we wonder why. Of course, you expect that market forces will come to place, and people that are not doing anything tangible or that are working a redundant job will be easily replaced rather than being an extra cost to their employers and, of course, the customers. But that's not usually the case. So let's find out why these people exist and how the existence of their jobs makes you have to pay higher for the goods and services you need. So in order to understand how we got this far, we first need to go back in history and check out the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union was built on the idea of noble labor. Basically, they went full-fledged on full employment. It was a big priority for everyone to be given tasks. However, in a society built like this, a lot of people will be given tasks that are redundant, all in a bid to ensure that everybody is employed and everybody is contributing to the society. Of course, a society like this did not last for long and the Soviet Union soon collapsed. However, there are a lot of behaviors that people still picked up from that time and they are using it in this modern time. Now, these labor behaviors can be categorized into 5 categories based off a book by David Graeber. One of the first categories is called the flunkies. The flunkies are basically people like your front desk personnel, your chauffeurs, the doorman. The main jobs of these people is basically to make people feel better about themselves. It's not like they really provide any intrinsic value. However, they are still part of the jobs that affect the final price the customer will be awarded. And most times, people in this role can be easily replaced with some form of technology. Then the author writes that the next category of people are the duct tapers. The duct tapers are people who work to alleviate problems that can easily be fixed permanently. Think about someone like an inventory manager that just happens to have the system's permission to update stock levels in the warehouse, where that could easily have been done automatically with some form of app. And the next category written in the book is the box stickers. These are basically the people that are employed to make the company look like a standard company in the eyes of other companies, so they can perform quote unquote standard practices. Think of the people that create internal company newspapers and stories about key executives. Whatever necessary document they believe is necessary. In the end, many of the employees do not read it. However, this culture coordinator or whatever title they are usually given, if they do not exist in that company, the company might not look like a very big and standard company. People might think they are working for a small company. Now it's time to get to the top of the list. The top of the list of the most redundant jobs that just increase the amount you have to pay at the end of the day is the goons. Companies that hire people into the roles of the goon. One example of a goon is the in-house corporate lawyers. Intrinsically, these lawyers don't produce anything. However, if you do not have them, it might end up costing you more money than the cost of having them. And they are there to help you fight off lawsuits from companies that also have internal lawyers. So it's almost like the lawyers are creating an employment cycle for themselves and looking for ways to sue one another to stay relevant. And a good example of this, mostly seen in places like the US, are patent trolls, which are basically lawyers of companies that buy up other companies and now look for people that are using previous companies' patents without its permissions and sues them. Or they find a way to settle out of court and make necessary payments. Even some of the largest companies in the world, like Apple and Microsoft and many of these tech giants, also participate in this game, because basically these lawyers have to prove that they are needed in the company and they're basically contributing something of value to the company and helping the company achieve its aims and objectives. While in actual fact, they're just an extra cost that the customer has to pay up for in the end in order for them to get their salary. And the last on the list are the taskmasters, who are hired to manage multiple people who in most cases do not need to be managed. Now, if these multiple people had like several different skills or different sections and then their job was to like match the puzzles together, maybe we will not have an issue with them. But basically, think of it this way. Imagine having a sales manager whose job is basically like the cheerleader of shouting on other people to go and get sales. A very easy way to identify if a person is a micromanager or if someone is in a redundant role, they usually call on meetings and have meetings and hold meetings, several meetings, asking people, oh, what's the update on this? Oh, what's the update on that? They are not really contributing anything. They are not really doing anything. They're just holding meetings and they love holding meetings. So basically, they end up distracting people from the real job that they have to do with their countless, endless, soulless, energy draining meetings. Micromanagers, I think, are one of the most expensive waste of money in a company. So in conclusion, if you're going to be a business owner or as a business owner, you have to watch out for all of these incompetencies. You have to watch out and not fall victim to hiring just because you have to hire to make yourself feel better or to make other people feel better or to make your company feel more professional. When you hire, you have to ensure that you're hiring to ensure that the customer has a lower price or the customer gains more value from whatever product or service you are rendering. Be on the lookout on all of these redundancies in labor and hire only what you need. Thank you for watching, and I hope you subscribe and like. And if you're thinking of how to come up with a great business name for your business, you can kindly watch the next video.